Now, Brand Africa have just announced the top 100 best brands in Africa. This is the first Pan-African study and ranking of brands where African brands are growing at 9%. This compared to global brands at 5% in Africa. Joining me in studio is Thebe Ikalafeng, Chairman of Brand Finance Africa. Thebe, thank you so much for making the time to join us. Now, understanding that you've been listed as one of the top 100 most influential people on the African continent, congratulations for that. Let's start off with your understanding of influence. What do you understand of that concept?
Well, to me, influence really means that you must be somebody that has an impact in other people's life, impact in other avenues of society. But in this particular instance, I think influence really refers to people who've had an impact on the African continent. People are trying to change the narrative of Africa. People are trying to move the continent forward.
Now, every time there's a conversation about Brand Africa, whether it's in South Africa or across the continent, Brand Thebe is always on the podium. What exactly do you do?
Well, thank you for noticing. I'm the chairman of Brand Africa, an initiative we started 4 years ago, and the purpose of Brand Africa is really to try and change the narrative of Africa. It is really about making Africa more competitive. It's about changing the reputation of Africa. And what we do with the Brand Africa, we run forums which enable Africans to get together to decide on the agenda of Africa, the agenda of changing Africa. We look at the initiatives like the best brands in Africa to try and encourage Africans to build brands, because brands in many ways are a vector of people's image of a continent, of a country, of a city. So the more we create brands, the better Africa gets viewed. If you look at Africa, about 85% of the brands that we admire are not from Africa. And those brands that we admire have helped us admire the countries they come from. So one of the things that we're trying to do with Brand Africa as well is to champion this idea of Africans creating and building made in Africa brands. To me, that's what we do at Brand Africa, and also trying to get youth involved, to get youth to be part of the agenda of changing Africa, because 65% of the continent being under the age of 25 or so means that we are just passers-by. The people who are going to take over this continent are still coming up. So one of the things that we're doing with Brand Africa is to bring youth along this journey, to let them lead the future.
Now, oftentimes when one looks at image building and brand building, it almost seems like it's the coating on top of the cake, and what's really important is what happens beneath the brand. So if we look at the politics on the continent, the ease of doing business on the continent, and we take that as the fundamental structures, what is the health of Brand Africa right now?
We are going in the right direction. As a continent, we are growing at 5%. If you look at the rest of the world, that's growing at 0%, if you call that growth.
Right.
If you look at 6 of the top 10 most fastest growing economies in the world, 6 of them are African. So that shows that there's an interest in this continent. You look at China, which in 1992 invested 1 billion in Africa. In 2011, the investment was up to 140 billion. So it shows you that there's a lot of interest in Africa. There's a lot of infrastructure growth in Africa. You look at any country, whether it's South Africa, Angola, Mozambique, everywhere you go across the continent, there is cranes, people are building. But what's mostly important is a lot of Africans are coming back home. And when Africans are coming back home, it means they are having pride in coming to be part of of moving this continent forward.
Let's look at the red flags that could potentially derail this positive brand building exercise that we've seen on the continent. Where are our potential pitfalls?
The important thing about branding of any kind is that a brand is a promise made and a promise delivered. So the most important thing that we need to do as a continent with our 54 countries, all at different levels of development, is we all need to deliver on the promises that we make. We have to make real the changes that we create in Africa. It is not just about creating pretty pictures, about creating beautiful campaigns and branding of cities and nations and regions. But it is really about changing the policies. It is really about ensuring that you're working with the people, you're empowering the people. On our continent, if I have to say there's our red flags, education is key.
Right.
Education is going to be quite important because we need to start educating our people. The level of education is quite worrisome in terms of where the standard of education is in Africa. Because without education, we are in trouble. I think we can be glad that with telecoms and financial services, the way they are going, that at least we have some of the basic infrastructure to move the continent.
Now, without a champion, no brand is likely to survive. If we were to take our political leaders as the champions of Brand Africa right now, do you think that the champions are doing a good job?
Well, the champions of Brand Africa are the 900 million citizens of the continent of Africa. Politicians are but just part of the team of African brand builders. So I think what we need to do as Africans is, and you're seeing a lot of that happening as well, is we are relying less and less on politicians. I think politicians need to create policies, entrepreneurs need to create ideas, consumers need to set the standard of how they want to be served, and as the custodians of Brand Africa, all 900 million of us, we need to hold everybody that we put in office to account for the decisions that they make. I think what you are beginning to see as well in the continent is African consumers are no longer just subservient and just accepting. Yes. We are now taking everybody to task. We are no longer just taking business to task. We're already taking politicians to task. And to me, that is what we need to be focusing on, because the leaders of the continent, whether it's politicians and all those, they only move as fast or as slow as the country as a country allows them, because they say each and every country ultimately gets the leaders it deserves.
Every country gets the leader it deserves. Thebe, thank you so much once again for joining us on Beyond Market.
Thank you so much.